saw a lawsuit in the paper.
Okay, thanks. We're good.
All right, ready to go? All right, the time is now 3:12 p.m. My name is Crystal Bryant. I feel like we need a do-over. All right.
Straight face.
We're going to officially call this meeting to order, the Cuyahoga County Region 3, 1 Ohio Advisory Committee meeting. Happy first day of Women's Month, everyone. We'll now start with roll call. If the following members are in attendance or a representative for that attendee, please state your name and state here. We'll start with myself, Crystal Bryant Aguilar, here. We have Nyla Bird.
I am here. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Nyla. Brandy Carney.
Here, present.
Matt Carroll. All right, and the representative? Representative for Purnell Jones.
Here, Michael King.
Thank you, Michael. Karen Cooper, or a representative. Brian Kimball, a representative. Councilman Blaine Griffin, or representative. I know we have someone coming for the prosecutor's office, so as they come in, we'll add them to the attendance. Tim DeGeter.
Bob Corey on behalf of Tim DeGeter. I emailed you.
Thank you, Bob. Ernie Vargo.
Yes, here, thank you.
Man. Matt Burke. Nicole Daly Jones.
Here.
Thank you, Nicole. Oh, I don't want to mess this up. Kristen Holzheimer Gill.
Here.
Thank you, Kristen. Did I mess it up?
Person.
Dang.
That's the one she got hung about.
Tom Olmsted. Okay, and Scott Osecki.
Here.
And Joan England.
Here.
Thank you all. There are still a few vacancies left, so I wanted to be able to acknowledge that. There are about 2 vacancies left on the board, but at some point we will begin to fill those vacancies at a later time. So we'll move on now to our voting items, which is agenda.
I'm here on behalf of Metro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Please say your name again.
Dave Greenspan.
Dave, oh, I should know that.
I don't know what that means.
I should.
I'm good.
I'm a former county employee. I absolutely should know that. Thank you, Bob. My apologies. All right. So for our voting items, approval of the meeting minutes. I'd ask that folk take a minute or so to look through the previous meeting minutes from November the 17th of 2022. If there are any edits or modifications needed, please speak up.
People need copies of them. If anyone needs copies of the minutes or agenda, and if there's anyone for public comment, you can sign it up there.
Thank you, Brian.
You need some?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right. All right. So we have a motion to approve. We have a second. All in favor? All right, all in favor? No opposition. Motion approved. So I'm going to punt it over to Brandy to talk a little bit about the voting of the new chairperson, and then we'll open it up for nominations.
Can I?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm so out of order, but may I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I just wanted the record to be clear as I'm getting my instruction. I am sitting in this seat of Matt Carroll. I will probably be his replacement going forward,
Okay.
where the county executive
Thank you, Nyla.
continue, although he's not here today. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I
So-
apologize for interrupting.
No, no problem at all. Tyler, please let the record reflect that change. Thank you, Ms. Bird. All right. Now kicking it over to Brandy.
So I think, and as previously, the last meeting, the same thing happened for our chair vote. We have a number of vacancies today, and we still have some, the processes that need to be completed for people who are no longer on this board. And so if we could table the chair until the next meeting, that's what is the preference for the county.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
I'll
Brandy.
make sure it's on the agenda for the next meeting.
All right. Thank you, Brandy. All right. Do we have any?
I'm sorry, how many seats are still needed to be filled?
So, well, we have the Metro seat, which they are making their designation. We have a third prosecutor's office. We have a third county seat, which Chief Bird just mentioned, Executive Ronayne. There are still 3 of the specialty court nominations that the Common Pleas Administrative Judge is making. I did get a call this morning, and they said they'd be sending those names, but I haven't yet received them. I'm sorry, I just don't have in front of me. Are there other vacancies that I'm? I apologize.
There's a handful. I can circle
I
back.
can circle it around to the
Yeah,
group.
nothing's resolved with the courts though. Okay.
And it says, it's specifically in the bylaws I can send to you that,
I have
that's, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Carney,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Is there anyone signed in for public comment?
Not that, there was one name on there, but it might be just someone that thought we were signing. Oh, yeah, this is one of the board members. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
there's nobody for-
So if there is no one for public comment, we can move on to the next agenda item. And so we would please have Judge Matias speak, providing an update from the State's Foundation Board.
Okay, where to begin? Do we have any tech?
I can have him put up the regional map. Yeah, we can do that. But if we want to start with something else, well, he gets
Just
that.
wanted, should have got the regional map. So I first want to say thanks everybody for attending and having interest in this. This is kind of a amorphous right now because there's some information I can give you, and there's some information I don't quite know where we're at. How much money we're gonna get, being number one. As you know from the last meeting, the One Ohio Recovery Foundation will receive 55% of the distribution from the opioid litigation funds. They have created this document, which I think was in your materials. So of the 55%, the foundation board of directors will vote as to how to distribute that. They will rely upon their expert panel's recommendations, and there's also a grant-making committee. I'm on the grant-making committee. I've been asked to be on on a smaller group that will review the 73 applications that have been received for the expert panel. I was also asked to be on their strategic planning initiative. So it's really kind of weird that all of these Republicans on the committee like me, but they just don't know me well enough yet. So I've been really involved in listening and observing the building of this infrastructure. The foundation has not received any money except $1 million from the Attorney General's office to set up things, to pay for insurance, to hire an interim CFO, and to pay for there is now a interim executive director, and that is Catherine Whittington. Catherine is a county commissioner in Ashtabula County. That is Region 13, Lucky 13, which as you see from the map, also includes Lake Geauga and Portage County. So she had been the board chair, and there was she got herself appointed interim executive director. That was discussed in an executive session, and then they all voted on it. I don't think that gives her a leg up on being the formal executive director down the road, but she's been pretty involved in this, and I'm happy with her ability to communicate and reach out. So the formal search for an executive director goes on, and we received a draft of a timeline that outlines, and this was done by Catherine Whittington. We're already behind on some things, like February says to be determined. The ED, which is executive director, will meet with the expert or executive committee to rank the expert panel applications. Those meetings are already set for April, so we're behind on that. There's a search firm for the formal executive director. The MOU that created this calls for the foundation to distribute the monies once they're received within 90 days. So once the foundation gets the money, they're not prepared, frankly, to make distribution decisions at this point. We don't have our expert panel. The grant making committee is almost finished formulating their policy. There's a divergence of opinions, I can tell you, amongst the board of directors as to whether this should just be, the foundation itself should just be a pass-through agency and just distribute to the various regions all the funds they get. I think that conflicts pretty clearly with the MOU, which states that there should be statewide programs developed. And it reminded, these monies are gonna flow in installments, pretty equal installments, but it will change by year in a minuscule fashion over 18 years. So, it's not like we're going to get a big bucket of money on July 1st. And I think at the last meeting I said $25 million. I have no idea at this point how much is going to come in initially, and I think there's some purposeful delay between the distribution of money from the larger national organization into One Ohio, because as you know, if your city was a party to this, you've already gotten your checks for the regional, for the local government share. The state's gotten their money, but the foundation has not received their money because they're not set up yet. I believe an application has been made now for the 501c3 status. But when things finally happen, we need to be prepared with our asks. So that is the takeaway from today's meeting. We need to go forward. We set up a schedule of meetings at the end of last meeting. In the minutes, you'll see, this meeting was moved from February 15th, but then there's meetings scheduled for May 16th, August 15th, November 15th. We need to figure out what we're gonna ask for, how we're gonna do it. Do we wanna partner with, say, Summit County, which is own independent region, to make our asks or proposals for a statewide program or a regional program more attractive? These are things to consider. I think we should, and who do we use our collective experience to put together proposals? Do we want to put together our own expert panel without making this too overly complicated? And it's hard to do when you don't know how much you're going to have to divvy up. So I wish I could give you more. And this sheet is the most confusing. I just talked to Brandy about this. This is the formula for distribution, and there's two columns. The first column is regional allocation with Summit and Cuyahoga County, and the other column is regional allocation without Summit or Cuyahoga County. And even under the without Summit and Cuyahoga County, Region 3, which is only Cuyahoga County, still gets, a little under 4% of the distribution. With Summit and Cuyahoga County would get about 9.5%. So that's a pretty big difference. If the distribution to the region, say, was, $10 million and we got our full share, we'd only be getting $900,000. It doesn't go that far. So the first distribution, I'm told, Catherine Whittington thought there will be 4 initial distributions in the first pot, and it's an incredibly complicated formula. 2 of the distributions are coming from the distributor, the litigation against the distributors. And I don't remember off the top of my head where the other 2, but she thought it would total $55 million coming into the state foundation. So you can maybe use that as a base number for year 1. I don't think the foundation has a choice to just sit on the money for a year, which I think would probably be the wiser thing to do. We all want to spend the money wisely. We don't want to, we don't want to follow the tobacco litigation funds. But, what kind of programs or program do we want to fund? Do we want to fund existing programs? Is there a need in the community that has not been met yet that we want to propose? So, I leave that up to the board, you guys to start thinking about, but I think we need to meet, a little more frequently for the next 2 or 3 months. And again, you can overly complicate this by, you can overthink it, or, do we just want to fund, a frontline worker, needle exchange van, something we already know that works or helps, or do we want to, fund a partial detox facility in the hospital? I'm just throwing out, I'm spitballing examples, but this is for up to the board to decide, and we don't have a chair now,
Judge, can I briefly
Yeah.
mention before you go on to the next item? For those who weren't at the last committee, the chair at that time had mentioned having, if I'm recalling correctly, an ad hoc group of this group that would work on, I think the discussion was it would likely be a process for sending in recommendations or projects to us. It would likely have to follow the county's bid process, but that's something, I don't know how we would do it otherwise. We talked about a committee to do
It's expert panel.
an expert panel for, I keep wanting to say algorithm, what I'm so, a rubric,
is that-
yes, that's what we talked about, if you guys remember at the last meeting, to help us out with the process, what type of applications to take, what the priorities were. So I think we were identifying people, and so I know that things have changed and it's been slow, but I agree that those are the next steps moving forward. The last comment I'd make is, I spent some considerable time with the state and CCAO on that sheet, because it's very confusing, and last I heard, and this is with using the 15 million when I did the math, and obviously it could change because we could get different amounts, but over 18 years, it was 14.6%, or 14.6 million over the 18 years is what I could best figure out, but obviously that could
That's
change
it.
depending on.
which is nothing compared to what the county's already received from.
Well, because we're getting this money, and obviously but we had the previous settlement too, so.
All right, thank you, Judge, and thank you, Ms. Carney, for those updates from the foundation and your additional support in adding information. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Judge Mattia as the representative of the foundation? Bob?
Judge, real quick, and I know you don't know the numbers, but what was that back of the envelope calculation you did where if Cuyahoga County was this much, we'd be 10% of that or 5%, which could be
Yeah.
only 900,000? What was that back of the envelope calculation?
Yeah, so, say we get the benefit of regional allocation with Cuyahoga County, then our share would be 9.435%.
And then is that
Of the
is that a
direct
big question mark? What's the?
That's the big question mark, and so I just said theoretically, if you take out what they might give to a statewide program, let's say there's 10 million left to distribute to the 19 regions, Cuyahoga County would get, 9.4% of 10 million, which would be $940-some thousand dollars, so,
Thank you, Judge.
it might pay for half of your, salary or something, but,
I'll let the mayor know.
Yeah.
You'd be ready.
You're wealthy man. Any other comments or questions for Judge Mattia? All right, so if we were kind of putting this into sync, Judge, thank you for a wonderful update. And also, Brandy, thank you. I know you'll actually mention some of this on the next agenda item under new and old business, so perhaps you can add a little bit more teeth to this conversation. But essentially, we want Judge Mattia is offering up that as a board or as a committee, we really need to take a deeper dive into thinking about what type of partnership or how we want to leverage regional partnerships to receive an increase in allocation, and also looking at the opportunity to create a methodology or mechanism in which how we're going to decide what type of programming we think needs to exist within this particular region. So whether we're funding old things, funding new things, increasing capacity for things, or looking at missed level of care opportunities, it sounds like that's where we're at. And so hearing no other comments or feedback from this agenda item, I'll turn it over back to Brandy to kind of talk a little bit more about some of the meeting minute things that Akram had talked about last meeting. You wanted to say something else, Judge?
So there's another grant-making committee meeting Friday, in which I anticipate we'll finalize the grant-making policy. And then there's the full board meeting will be next Wednesday in Columbus. I plan to go down in person for. And then Tyler discovered something that I didn't realize. The website allows one to sign up for updates.
Yeah. On the email I sent, there's one of the links that's sent over, you can sign up and if you put your email in it, you'll get their newsletters that go out, meeting recaps, any press releases or op-eds they do. So if you just sign up on that, you'll get all the updates from the state board, so I think that'd be helpful.
I would urge everyone to sign up. The meeting recaps are great. They're simple, you don't have to wait till, I misconstrue something at the meeting till you hear publicly. You can just get the, direct, transparent, recap of the meeting from, the One Ohio
I can send that again.
website, yeah. So if you send out the link that before
Yeah,
before you leave us.
Don't make that face.
Oh, for those not at
One
the
last thing,
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
thank you.
So that link is actually in the second page of your meeting minutes as well. And also, if you need reference to the motion that was made in the previous minutes, because it was a few months ago, in regards to the conversation that Brandy is getting ready to kind of spear back up, you can look at the details of the motion that was made in regards to the rubric and the RFP process. Now we'll yield and turn the floor over to Brandy.
Oh, I should have never opened my mouth before on this one, huh? I mean, I think, as discussed at the last meeting in this, there's a lot, and as per Judge Mattia said, there's still a lot of unknowns that we were waiting to see what restrictions, requirements, and/or, even the process that the state might finalize. And so really that's what we've been waiting on. But, as he mentioned, once they get their money, unless something changes at this point, they're not actually sending that money to Cuyahoga County. They're keeping the money. We identify projects and priorities. So whether to Vice Chairwoman's point, we decide to identify priorities or leverage relationships, or if we first just start a process where right now we take applications for requests and get some ideas in, whatever as collectively as a board we want to do to identify our process, then we can be better prepared when they do, if they quickly receive money and then distribute it back out, let's say it's in 3 to 6 months, it'd be nice, we should be as far as long as possible, that we can do without having, much of their final process provided. So
Yeah.
I think that was obviously the intention for Dr. Boutros' discussion on an expert committee. Doesn't necessarily have to be members on this committee, or it could be both. Kind of look at right now the status of Cuyahoga County, the region, what are the needs specific to opioid and the settlements. Where are the gaps, what makes most sense, some medical community, some of the behavioral health community. So that was one of the suggestions that he had made, and to develop the rubric. But again, that's for all of us as a committee to decide what process really we think makes the most sense, and we'd like to move forward.
Can we, if I can ask, can we have a point person from the administration perhaps call, certainly County Executive Shapiro, who is the Summit County's region director, and the state's divided into metropolitan and non-metropolitan regions, and I think it would be helpful if we reached out to the other metropolitan regions and asked them, hey, what are you planning to ask for? What are your thoughts on how this, we could learn something, because I think some regions are farther ahead than we are.
We can take that. I can, because of the settlement, obviously as a bellwether, it was us and Summit County previously. So, just from that, I have a regular relationship, that I speak with their health director, because she's in charge of their funding. But maybe she could come to our meeting, the next meeting, or we could provide some information on where they're at, and then we can see. But last time I had spoke, I think that they were kind of in a waiting pattern, just like us. And I know I spoke to the CCAO, and some others in the room might have. They were kind of in the same place at that time. They were lobbying for, that the final decision was made here in the region where the money's coming to, rather than us recommending and final decision. But outside of that, there hadn't been additional information that was provided.
Question. Sure. So Judge, the $55 million, that was a lifetime appropriation to the state?
No, that would be a collection of actually 4 payments. Because this is, it's settled so long ago, the first lump sum is ready, and the way she explained it, when it comes, we get 2 of the distributions due from the distributor settlement, which was Cardinal Health and McKesson and those folks. The other two lump sums that go to make up that 55 million, I can't remember what she said, where that comes from, but we got the impression that the foundation would have approximately 55 million to divvy up between the regions and any statewide programs in the first go-round.
So that's the first of 18 appropriations? Or is that 55 million? I guess, what is that? Is that
That's the first of at least two appropriations. That's two combined. So because of the time lag, we're gonna get two instead of one, because we've been waiting so long for the first one.
So what are they anticipating the total 18-year payout's gonna be?
What do they anticipate the total? I think it's somewhere near $500 million.
And then we're between 4% and 9% generally.
Right, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe another suggestion is, bring a lawyer in like Frank Gallucci, who was involved in the MOU and might be able to answer this question. Because the MOU was drafted by the plaintiff's attorneys, the attorney generals, and then not every locality who was involved in the litigation signed off on it. Most did, and the payouts increase when more people sign up, more localities sign off on it. So there's a few that haven't, but I don't think it's enough to really make a material difference at this point. So, but somebody like Gallucci could might be able to better answer some questions like that. But I'm sorry I cannot provide you with more certainty here. But patience. But be ready, when the money comes with some kind of asks or various asks.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Greenspan. Any other questions or comments for Judge Mattia in regards to this matter? So we were kind of carving out, first, I'm sorry, I just received this message. Please let the record reflect that we do have representation. Mark, is it Musson?
Mustard, yep.
I'm so sorry, from the prosecutor's office, who walked in way before 30 minutes ago, so I'm sorry.
sorry,
Just want to
I'm
make sure it's on the record. So if we were summing up next steps, recognizing that Judge Mattia provided a lot of good information today, just want to make sure that everyone's capturing this and we're all on the same page. Looks like the very first thing we want to be doing as a board to be responsive is reaching out to Summit County Executive to see where they're at in their process, engage any interest in partnership as a region. Looks like maybe the second thing, based off the motion that was passed from the November meeting, is having county staff, if they still have that vested interest, in accepting nominations for this ad hoc team. That way, speaking to Judge Mattia's desire and pay probably really good recommendation that we have a sub-team kind of meeting more regularly to be prepared when the dollars flow and come down and to kind of know what we want. And they can create that separate meeting schedule once you accept those nominations for those who would like to be a part of that ad hoc team. And then also making sure that ad hoc team understands that at least for what we have now in terms of information, what we're looking for is that for them to kind of, put before the full board what it looks like in terms of a partnership with Summit County, also thinking about what will be the methodology for determining what level of services or what type of programming or services we'd like to have here in this region. And then lastly, kind of finalizing that rubric. Is that correct? Anybody want to join in or comment in terms of next steps?
The only other comment I had, Chairman, is I think we talked about, and I could be wrong, and maybe Mark, but if individuals on the subject matter committee, expert committee, in addition to board members here, we might want to recommend some outside of board membership.
Yes. So
Just
thank
throwing
you,
that
Ms.
out there.
Gurney,
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so is it okay if they send nominations to you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're losing Tyler, unfortunately, so happy to, for interim.
It's my broken heart. Do we have a time frame, because time is of the essence, in which you would like to receive them?
I mean, I think in the next 2 weeks, I think we can discuss if there's names outside of who's here on this committee that might be valuable to this discussion that we could discuss. But otherwise, if you guys want to send them to me over, and I'll send a reminder to everybody.
Thank you. So by March 15th, that everyone can have that information to Brandy via email, and also per Judge Mattia's instruction, his gentle guide, make sure you guys can sign up for the website so we can receive updates in regards to the foundation.
I just sent the link again, so.
That's why we're gonna miss you. I seen it come through. All right, if there are no other comments or questions under new and old business, nothing to add to the synopsis of next steps. Hearing none, at 3:42 PM, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really sorry too. I wasn't trying to be offensive. I just knew I recognized his face, but then couldn't get the name together. I'm like, I know his face. I just couldn't get the name together.
Vice Chair,
Tough to Greg.
when are we meeting next? Are we meeting May 15th or we want to meet before that?
The full, I think the full is okay if we had an ad hoc going. You don't think so?
I just want to make sure the ad hoc gets going.
Yeah, that's why we have a specific date. And so what I can do for you in the absence of a vice chair is I can